2026 marks the 30th anniversary of Pokémon. That's right, it's been 30 years since the original Pokémon Red and Green released in Japan, with that exact date being in just a little over a month on February 27th, or as we've come to know it in the last few years, Pokémon Day. In the last couple of years, we've gotten some pretty crazy announcements on Pokémon Day, but with 2026 being the 30th anniversary, many are expecting the announcement of Generation 10. As far as official announcements go, we don't know anything about Gen 10 or if it's even coming at all, but if you've been paying attention to the leaks, it's a completely different story. There's quite a lot of information about Gen 10 out there, and all of it, I believe, comes from the big Terra leak that happened back in October 2024. This leak contained so much information about past, present, and future Pokemon games. So today we're going to be taking a look at everything that's leaked so far, which of course means there's going to be potential spoilers. And I say potential because this is, of course, pre-release information. None of this is 100% guaranteed to be in the games, but it gives us a good idea of what to expect come Pokemon Day, and if it ends up releasing later in this year, what'll actually be in the games. So one more time, huge spoiler warning if you don't want to know anything about the upcoming titles, this ain't the video for you. And I debated whether I was going to cover this myself or not, but as has happened with the last 3 Pokemon games, I end up seeing the spoilers even when I'm trying to avoid them. There was one particular day when all the info for Gen 10 was coming out. The leaks were all over the place and I ended up seeing them. So I feel like I might as well talk about them since I've already seen them myself anyway. So I want to give a huge shout out to Pokios, Pokios.com. I just realized my camera is covering that, but here you can find all of the Gen 10 and even other Pokemon game leak information all in one nice place, and even some NASCAR apparently. I swear, dude, I have ad block. It doesn't even, what's the point of ad block in 2026? Let me know in the comments if there's a better version, but anyway. They actually have a page that encompasses the entire Terra leak, not just Gen 10, but other potential projects coming up like Legends 3 Galar. That's gotta be its own separate video. I didn't even know about that until right now. Well, hold up. Gen 10, Pokemon Winds and Waves, or I guess just singular Wind and Wave, aka Project Gaia. As you can see here though, no Wind and Wave. It is actually Gaia K and Gaia N, because I believe that is the code name for the overall generation is Project Gaia, like how Scarlet and Violet was named Project Titan. And as we now know, Titans ended up being a big part of Scarlet and Violet, so I wonder what the codename Gaia could tell us about Gen 10. Gaia, I believe, is the Greek goddess of the land, so it could just be an overall theme of life, which, as you'll see, does fit with the region that they're cooking so far. But as for the names Pokemon Wind and Wave that you might have seen floating around, specifically these logos were originally fan-created, just based off the Japanese codenames, which led to this fun theory that the K could stand for Kaze, which means wind in Japanese, and the N Nami, which means wave. And this was just a fan theory, but Riddler Coup did give it a little heart of approval, leading to many fans believing these were the actual names. And it turns out they were. As confirmed in these leaked internal meeting scripts between Game Freak and the Pokemon anime team, you can see Wind and Wave. And I like it, man. I really F's with it, for lack of better words. Particularly when paired with some of the images we're going to see later. It just gives this sort of Wind Waker vibe, which is my favorite Zelda game, so a Pokemon game like Wind Waker, I'm here for it. And here we can see some concept images, kind of like a PowerPoint presentation of an initial pitch for Project Gaia, or Wind and Waves. And these are all in Japanese, but I found this thread here where they've machine translated into English. So it might not be 100% accurate, but we can get a better idea of the concept of wind and waves. All this will be linked in the description if you want to take a look for yourself. But so far, very cool, big island theme, a lot of variety of environments, ride, interact with, and dress up. Wait, dress up Pokemon? Hold up. That reminds me of this fan game, or I guess it was a fan concept. I forgot what it was called, but I'll be showing the footage on screen right now, where you could put accessories on your Pokemon. And again, we don't know if all this or any of this will make it into the final game, but that sounds pretty cool. Ride, interact, and dress up. Bro, they really put a picture of the new Jumanji. Why not? Couldn't pay respect to the old one. You gotta have the Rock Jack Black Jumanji. All right, well, this is a huge one. I've mentioned back in my Pokopia video that there's supposedly gonna be some procedural generation in Gen 10, and here specifically says adaptation of islands in Pokemon, and they even have Spore as a reference image if you don't know the game Spore. I was big on Spore. I specifically remember people would try to recreate Pokemon within Spore. I'm pretty sure that's like how I started YouTube. Besides like creating my own custom sprites, I would try to make Pokemon in Spore, and that channel is sadly gone now, so I don't have any of my old creations, but it's like a weird full circle moment. Now we have Pokemon using Spore as inspiration. In Titan, one special ride Pokemon was created, so that's Scarlet and Violet. We had just Koraidon, Miraidon. In Gaia, we want to create a diversely evolving Pokemon whose form changes depending on how it grows. Players create their own islands, register them on the server, and discover countless islands. So it seems like Animal Crossing, there will be one specific island that the player gets to customize, and then other players can visit. On paper, that sounds amazing. I've been wanting a sort of build your own gym. Like in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, we had the hidden bases and people sort of try to make their own little makeshift gyms, but it was very bare bones. And I know from the tier leak, apparently in Sun and Moon, there was going to be a gym builder function. Sadly, ended up getting scrapped, but you'd be able to create your own gym and other players online could come challenge it. So again, a bit of a full circle moment here. You can make your own island and people can come visit it. I really hope this ends up staying in it because, again, this is something I've been wanting in a Pokemon game for a while. I don't know how I missed this one. We got some of the potential creatures or Pokemon, I guess, that we might see in the region. Elephants, ostrich, freaking, what is going on in this picture, bro? That's wild. So that was basically the pitch for Project Gaia or Gen 10. And now we're gonna get into some other, I guess, later in development images that ended up coming through the Terra League. And these are actually like basically the beta of Gen 10. So if so far the spoilers weren't too bad, it's gonna get real crazy now. I gotta give a shout out real quick to the one person that literally in every video I posted for the last like 3 months was asking me to talk about the Gen 10 region, specifically being based on Southeast Asia. This one's for you, buddy, because yes, Pokemon Wind and Wave will be inspired by Indonesia and Southeast Asia. So I'd previously done a video back when the Terra League first happened. I thought it was going to be based on Greek islands because, I mean, the codename is Gaia, Greek goddess. But honestly, Indonesia and Southeast Asia, there's so much more to work with there, so much diversity of biomes and animals. And the latest leaks actually gave us an official beta map of the region. I know the original Terra Leak happened in October 2024, so this is basically 2 years before the final game, and we already have the map. This, I guess I don't want to say finalized, because of course a lot of things could change by the final version, but it's a pretty advanced map, I guess you could say, with one main big island in the middle. Things got a volcano. And then of course we have all these other islands. On the south here, you can see one with a town or city, and you can see that little corner that could be potentially linked to Australia. I found this image online. I don't remember the source, but I'll put it on screen when I find it, that overlays the Pokemon region with the real life Indonesia. And you can see a lot of it matches up like almost one-to-one. Obviously the positioning of certain things like this island over here on the actual region map is way up here. So overall things have been moved around, but you can clearly see the inspiration there. And more importantly, you can see the absolute diversity of these islands. Like there's a whole desert area down here. You of course have that city with a big lake. You've got some more like canyon-like islands. I don't know about these little clouds over here. Is there a whole like cloud sky area you can explore? Maybe like Tears of the Kingdom. That'd be pretty crazy. There's of course the big main volcano island. There's a snowy island up here and another one over here. I guess what you've come to expect from a Pokemon game. They're gonna hit all those biomes, but specifically because of the inspiration for this region, I do expect a lot more lushness, a lot more biodiversity. Here we have the first official concept image for Gen 10. Why they were using Nemona as a placeholder, I guess it's just a placeholder, it doesn't really matter, but as you can see, it looks so much more robust than Scarlet and Violet. I mean, more than the graphics really, I just love the detail of the environments here. I want the Pokemon world to look full of life, especially with an island theme. They seem to be going looks pretty good. But, you know, I don't expect the game to look exactly like this, of course. Additional leaked materials include internal test videos showcasing early simulations of waves, water splashes, wind effects, and underwater environments. You can actually see some of those internal tests here. Dondozo, just chillin'. Oh my god, there's a little Love Disc and Luminion in there too. Another one of my biggest asks since Pokemon went open world is for the environments to feel more lived in, instead of Pokemon just randomly popping up. I always think back to the new Pokemon Snap, and I know that's a completely different game, but the Pokemon actually look like they live in those environments. So just that first one looks pretty good. We have a tornado, or I guess some kind of wind effect here, which reminds me of the Meloetta side quest in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, how there was like the little twirling wind. I'm not too familiar with game development, but you can see here wind and wind physics. So I think that's just meant to simulate like how the blades of grass actually change direction if the wind itself is changing direction, which seems pretty advanced, at least for Pokemon standards. Here we have some testing of waves. Yo, wait a minute, this is actually sick. If you get to like go between the islands like Wind Waker I mentioned, and there's waves rocking you, all that basically tells us from a technical standpoint, Gen 10 will be a lot more advanced than what we've come to expect, at least in Scarlet and Violet Legends EA. Probably means this is going to be a Switch 2 exclusive game. I haven't actually read into that, but I assume Gen 10 is going to be only on Switch 2, especially with Pokopia coming out later this year, also being Switch 2 exclusive. Opening up the real life map, you can see this would be the central island with the volcano. So everything in the red dotted line is Indonesia. So most of the region is going to be based on Indonesia, but you got a little bit of Papua New Guinea there. The top half of this island is actually part of Malaysia. So the region is mostly Malaysia, Indonesia. I want to guess that the big city we see at the bottom is based on Jakarta though, just based off like the positioning on the map. I know some leaks have mentioned Kuala Lumpur, which is over here in Malaysia, as being the starting city. So maybe it's all been worked around, warped a little bit, but as a inspiration for a Pokemon region, this would be the first time they're doing a region based on Asia outside of Japan, which I think is really, really cool. I mean, there's just so much to go off of here in terms of culture, and as we've already seen, biodiversity. Now, some of you might be thinking this region looks a little familiar. Culturally, I know this region is going to be completely different to Alola, but in terms of like the gameplay experience, hopping from island to island does sound or feel like it would be a little similar to Alola. But what makes this one totally different is that it will most likely be an open world, so you can go to any island in any order that you want. Really what's gonna make or break this is how they handle level scaling, because if it's like Scarlet and Violet again, where, you know, they're the gyms, you can do them in any order technically, but we all know in practice that didn't end up working. And it does seem like Gen 10 will have a similar approach, at least based off these early narrative descriptions from 2021. Traditional gyms are replaced with a broad system of adventures. These include battles, environmental challenges, rescue missions, survival activities, traversal unlocks, raids, and more. This immediately makes me think of Scarlet and Violet, how you had 18 distinct missions, I guess you could say, 8 of them being gyms, and then I think 5 Titans and 5 Team Star bosses. Similarly here we see there are 18 major milestones loosely tied to Pokemon types and themed around sustainability and long-term development. Completing all of them is not mandatory, but required for the true ending. Players can freely explore once traversal abilities like surfing are unlocked, including the option to challenge late game content early, even the final boss, though doing so results in an incomplete ending. Honestly, it sounds pretty similar to Scarlet and Violet, because I think you had to complete all 3 paths in order to see the final mission with Area Zero, but the fact you can apparently finish the game without having done all of them is definitely new. And like I said, this is from 2021, so things could have definitely changed, but this is something that I hope is in the final game, because different endings and being able to have a true ending for completionists, that's something that in an open world game is, well, not really a requirement, but it makes you feel a lot more accomplished if you've done every single side quest. You get a better reward or better ending in this case. But in order to discuss these specific 18 objectives, we have to dive a little bit into the potential gimmick for Gen 10, a mechanic referred to in the leaks as Majin. Now that doesn't mean that it's actually going to be called Majin in the game. In fact, it's almost guaranteed to be called something entirely different, but the name could hint at what it actually does. In Japanese, Majin refers to demon person or magic person. It's probably a better translation. And yeah, I immediately think of Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z. I'm sure most of you guys do as well. But Majin specifically is more just magic-infused humanoids. And I want you to think about that last phrase, magic-infused, as we take a look at this animation leaked, supposedly revealing Majin. I don't know what is going on with Pikachu here. He's just like flubber, inflating in all sorts of weird places. But supposedly this is Majin, or at least related to Majin, or related to the gimmick of Gen 10. But what really throws this whole Majin thing out of the loop is that apparently the gimmick is going to be weather-based, though its exact mechanics remain unclear. It's hard to say if it means weather as in like if it's raining in the game, maybe the gimmick is affected differently. Pikachu does seem like it's filling up with water or air, which again, wind and waves. But what it actually does in terms of stats or power up, your guess is as good as mine. But this isn't the only mention of Majin among the leaked stuff. There are no images, it's just script assets, so files that have been found with these names like Majin Esper, Majin Ghost, Magic Hono, and those actually all translate to types in Pokemon, so basically Magic Psychic. At this stage, it is unclear whether these assets refer to boss encounters, transformed Pokemon, environmental zones, weather states, or special trials/events. However, their existence confirms that Majin is not a single effect, but a system with multiple typed variations. Immediately following this, we have what seems to be the replacement for Titan Pokemon in Gen 10, supposedly being referred to as Nushi. Nushi in Japanese means master, owner, or guardian spirit, so 100% this is like another type of boss that'll be in the game, which now makes me wonder what Majin could be. So if Nushi are more like boss Pokemon, then maybe the ones we saw earlier as Majin could be closer to the evil team for this region, like Team Star in Scarlet and Violet. And then finally we have mentions of Pokemon types for what could be gyms, or at least whatever the equivalent of gyms are. So far, there seems to be gyms for Dark, Poison, Fairy, Steel, Flying, and Fighting type. And there's data present for Bug and Electric, but it's a little bit different, so these are probably unconfirmed or still placeholder. Again, I don't think that was bad in concept. Really, it was just the fact you couldn't challenge them in whatever order you want that made Scarlet and Violet feel kinda half-baked. And I could definitely see being improved in Gen 10. So my biggest hope is just that you can take them on truly in whatever order you want. And there might just be a little bit of evidence that suggests this game will truly be open. It doesn't really mention level scaling, but one of the most ambitious ideas in the Project Gaia presentations is the Seed Pokemon. Unlike traditional evolutions, this Pokemon has no fixed final form. Its appearance and development are shaped by growth, environment, and player interaction with near infinite variation. This is where the Spore inspiration that we saw earlier is supposedly for this Seed Pokemon, so basically the way that you explore is how it ends up evolving. Its growth directly affects the world itself, procedurally shaping islands, environments, and ecosystems, and also functions as a progression gate, unlocking access to key locations, including legendary islands. How I imagine the whole description of this Seed Pokemon, if it makes it into the final game, is that based on the order in which you complete these 18 type challenges, it evolves differently. So if you do the Fire Gym first, maybe its first evolution will be Fire type. And if you do Water after that, maybe it stays Fire but gets some sort of water element added to it, or maybe learns a water move. What I don't see happening is the world itself changing based on that though, because we already see the region map too. It's pretty established. Most of those details are from like 5 years ago at this point, or when the game comes out, they'll have been like nearly 6 years old. So definitely the final version of the game will be very different from what's described in some of these details. But I think for sure some of the images that we've seen, particularly the region, is going to be pretty close to the final version. But with such a seemingly big region, you might be wondering how we get around it. And that actually brings us to the next topic. Allow me to introduce you to the Rotom Scooter. I know a lot of people are tired of Rotom just being shoved in everything, basically. I think this Rotom Scooter looks a little weird. Of course, this isn't finalized or anything, but the idea of this Rotom Scooter is definitely better than the bike at least, because this vehicle will hover above the ground and is directly linked to the Pokemon currently outside of its Pokeball. A cable connects the Pokemon to the scooter, implying that the player doesn't ride independently, but instead follows or is pulled along by their Pokemon. You can see an example of that in action here with Charizard basically leading as you, the player, follow behind with the scooter. So this is basically going to make it so most, if not all, Pokemon are basically ride Pokemon. There's another much lower quality image here, but I believe that is Lucario, and you can see the player following behind it. So you're still controlling your character. I think it's like centered in the middle, but I guess as you're using the analog stick to move around, your Pokemon automatically goes in front of you. So it's almost like you're controlling the Pokemon and the player's just following it. Which in theory sounds cool, but I would have probably much rather that you get to ride the Pokemon themselves, kind of like in Let's Go. Obviously that game was just Kanto, so it was a lot more manageable, and making every single Pokemon rideable is a pretty gargantuan task. You know, every single Pokemon has a unique way that they can be ridden. I guess not every Pokemon can be ridden, so in this way, truly any Pokemon has the potential to become a quote-unquote ride Pokemon, because I can even imagine tiny little Pikachu. The cable connects to it and your character just follows behind. And obviously in these images, the character is just T-posing, so it doesn't fully show it in motion, but yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. If it makes every Pokemon usable outside of battle, I think that's a huge plus. Oh, and the biggest thing is, of course, it won't just be Pokemon on land, but also in the sky and sea, as you can fly or dive, depending on the partner Pokemon's abilities. So because this scooter hovers, you can use a flying Pokemon to just go into the sky, which is pretty crazy. I wonder if there's going to be any sort of limit to being able to fly anywhere from the beginning of the game. In this final image, we can see the underwater diving exploration. It's pretty dark, so it's hard to tell, but there's the character on the Rotom scooter being led by Illuminion, which is really cool. We haven't had diving in a Pokemon game since, I think, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It does make me wonder how much of the map you can dive underwater, because if like the whole region, you can see just how much water there is in this region map. If you can go underwater anywhere, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of just empty spaces. Like maybe there's random love discs to catch, but there's got to be specific areas with like ruins or caves to explore. I totally glossed over it, but in that Rotom scooter, you can also see the tentative protagonist for the game. I want to say this is the male protagonist here, and he looks fine. And there they are in game. Obviously, this is early lighting rendering, so final game will hopefully look a lot better than this. On the Rotom scooter is the female protagonist, or at least an early version of her. Perhaps the biggest question I have about these games is whether they're going to go back to the classic turn-based style we've seen in every main generation entry, or if we might see some of the real-time action elements from Legend ZA. I couldn't find any confirmation of it on Pokeos or any of the Twitter threads that I've previously gone on, but I sort of remember seeing somewhere that there's going to be a hybrid battle system that incorporates turn-based and some real-time elements. It's kind of hard to tell because here you just see the 4 attacks, and they do have PP, which that alone signals turn-based, but then this is also like old beta stuff, so could definitely change by the final version. But here we get to see another village or town kind of area here. And again, I really love the plants. Like, it definitely looks more empty than the concept, but the final version, I mean, there's not even a character rendered in here, so. Because in June 2024, we have another build, and here you start to see a little bit more of the environment. Still nowhere near finalized, but there's just more stuff, more vegetation, trees, rocks, and of course, Pokemon. Assuming that all of these green lines are health bars, you can see a Shinx hiding behind the rock and a Luxio behind it. And I love how a lot of them are hidden from view because of the vegetation. This is a pretty low res image, but if you zoom out, you can definitely tell there's a lot of vegetation there. It's a very, very lush jungle. It really makes me wonder if you can walk anywhere, if there's going to be any invisible walls, you know? In this build, we have the finalized character models. They're no longer a black silhouette. And you can also see the battle system here, still the same, a little test. Definitely looking more like it's going to be turn-based. And this was the final build that was discovered in the Terra Leak from June 2024. Meaning it's been around a year and a half of more development since then, things that we don't know. It's unknown exactly how many of these features remain in the final game, like the procedural generation, or even the Rotom scooter, exactly how that'll be incorporated. To wrap things up, a couple other tidbits I noticed is Winded Wave supposedly has a budget of $20 million, which is 7 million more than Legends EA, apparently. I mean, I'll be honest, 13 or 20 million sounds like a lot of money, but for game development and considering what Legends EA came out with 13 million, doesn't seem like 20 million is that much more, especially considering how much money Pokemon makes a year. There was like a image that came out recently. Pokemon more than doubles the second biggest franchise, so they could definitely afford to put more towards the games. But then you also think about Expedition 33, the game of the year, and it cost apparently less than 10 million, and look at how that game looks. So maybe it's not just about budget. Interestingly, Wind and Wave seems to feature non-linear progression structure. That's definitely what I'm most excited about. Once you get the ability to travel across the ocean, they can challenge the final boss immediately, and if successful, you'll see the game's credits early. Actually, I might just attempt that the first time I stream the game, just to see how hard is it to beat the final boss right from the start. And it actually mentions here that it might also be MMO, which if you don't know is massively multiplayer online, like World of Warcraft. I guess you could argue Pokemon has had MMO-like elements before, like in Sword and Shield you could see other players' tents if you were online, and in Scarlet and Violet there was the Unicircle where you could actually play with other people in real time, but only if they joined your specific room. So I wonder if that means that in Gaia or Wind and Waves, you'll be able to see other random players in your world. I doubt it's going to be like every player that's online because there's way too many people. The islands would look overly crowded and crazy. But maybe in specific zones, you can see other players even without connecting to their specific worlds. But it's specifically talking about in terms of the structure of the world being open world MMO. So maybe they're more so referring to how you get side quests that end up leading you to other sides of the region. That would certainly make some of these smaller islands a lot more, I guess, important. But that about does it. There's definitely more information. And again, the site will be linked in the description if you guys want to read all of it yourself. So overall, from what we've got so far, I am very excited for Gen 10. There is a small chance that none of this is real. That would be very unlikely though, considering this was officially from Game Freak just early on. A freely explorable open island hopping adventure where the order in which you do things actually affects your final outcome, and things can even be skipped if you want an earlier untrue ending. That, I hope, does remain in the final game. I think for an open world game, that's really cool. I think we've covered all the most important stuff though, and mostly the stuff that has concrete evidence. There's a lot more rumors out there. The Terra League did have more information that hasn't, I guess, publicly come out, so there's a lot to be excited about. So let me know what you guys think of Pokemon Wind and Wave. Are you excited about Pokemon continuing to evolve their open world concept, or do you wish they'd go back to a more linear approach? All will be answered very soon, as Pokemon Day is fast approaching in a little over a month. The only thing we know for sure is Gen 10 has to be revealed on that day. If they want to make Gen 10 on the 30th anniversary, which they definitely will, I am so excited to see how much of this stuff ends up being true. Then again, it's going to be just the first trailer, so we might not actually learn all that much, but at least the region, right? That alone would confirm a lot of these leaks. So if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, as I'll of course be covering any official news that comes out. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you then.